3 weeks ahead of the US presidential election, the Senate Judiciary Committee opened hearings on Monday on the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the US Supreme Court. The Senate has never before held a hearing so close to a presidential race, nor has it proceeded with a hearing during a pandemic, especially one that's killed more than 214,000 people in the United States and infected more than 7.7 million, including 2 Republican committee members in the Senate. Also on Monday, President Donald Trump continued to stir up controversy as he resumes rallying just 10 days after revealing he was diagnosed with COVID-19. So it's a rather dramatic start to the week in US politics, and we're here today to discuss it with Henry Olsen, Washington Post columnist and senior fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center, who authored The Working Class Republican, Ronald Reagan and the Return of the Blue Collar Conservatism. We also connect with Elaine Kmark, founding director of the Center for Effective Public Management and senior fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution. It's wonderful to see you both, and well, thank you first of all for joining us this morning here in Korea. And well, my first question to you, Dr. Olsen. Let's start with Amy Barrett's confirmation hearing that began today for you in the US. Now, Barrett's confirmation would give the Republicans a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court and also work as sort of an insurance policy if Trump loses the election. But the concern here is that Barrett is an originalist and a devout Catholic and may take the court to the far right on key issues such as abortion. And of course, the Democrats couldn't really stop the confirmation proceedings from taking place, and they've been focusing mostly on the messaging regarding Barrett's views on healthcare and abortion. Do you think this will work, though, on the part of the Democrats? I mean, how do you see this confirmation process playing out?
Politically, I think the process is going to be a case of rallying the bases, that most people who could possibly change their mind do not care a lot about the Supreme Court, that each side knows what they want in a Supreme Court justice, and it's the opposite of what the other side wants. So conservatives are happy with Barrett, progressives are unhappy. And I think that's what the messaging is really designed to do. The Democrats are trying to reach a swing voter by raising doubts about whether the justice or the judge who could become a justice would overrule Obamacare. I don't think that's really something that stands out and makes a clear message in the media environment where President Trump is constantly making news. So I think it's mainly a matter of each side rallying its bases to get as high a turnout as possible. But the confirmation will go through as planned, and she'll become a justice, and it won't really impact the election much.
So what are your views on this, Dr. Kmark, on this bipartisan divide we're seeing
over the Supreme Court? I think that what you heard today with the Democratic questioning was that they're trying to focus this election on the issue of health care and on the issue of taking away health care in the middle of a pandemic. It's a very serious charge that they're leveling against the president, against the Republicans in the Senate, and of course against the Supreme Court nominee. The fact of the matter is that she probably will be confirmed, but the stakes are very high. And just as Henry said, this is a way to rally the conservative base. It is definitely a way to rally the Democratic base. And if we are to take any lessons from 2018, it worked quite well in 2018 because Democrats took over the House of Representatives based on arguments about health care. And that's, I think, what you saw today in the Senate.
And we're also seeing this bipartisan contest playing out in the Senate itself. I mean, Mr. Olsen, Senate Republicans who hold a 3-seat majority, they no longer really have a significant advantage in retaining their control of the chamber next year. So how sensitive is the Senate race to President Trump's actions in the final weeks of the campaign season?
We've been finding for the last few elections that increasingly Senate races don't run differently than the presidential race in presidential years. And that's what the polling is telling us, is that where President Trump is doing well, Republicans are doing well. Where President Trump is not doing well, Republicans are not doing well. And because the president's behind by 10 points in the polls, that means there's a lot more places that he's not doing well. If the election were held today, Republicans would clearly lose control of the Senate. The only question is how many seats would the Democrats gain? And that's something that worries Senate Republican strategists, is it doesn't seem to be anything that they can do to separate themselves enough from the president, nor does it look like they can influence the president to adopt a more effective mode of campaigning that would talk to swing voters and not simply base Republicans.
And Dr. Kmart, would you say that the Democrats have a good chance there of gaining control of the Senate?
Well, certainly most Democrats think that if the election were held today or tomorrow, yes, that the Democrats would take control of the White House and the Senate. Now, we're a couple more weeks to go, and we don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, as we say. But the fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party is looking very strong, particularly in some of the swing states that Hillary Clinton lost very narrowly 4 years ago, and that's the race. There are more Republican seats up this time, which always makes it harder. And while the Democrats are likely to lose one Republican Senate seat, they're not likely to lose any others. And the pickups could be anywhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 or 6, depending, again, on how the president's numbers go.
So if Joe Biden wins, then the Democrats would need about 3 seats, and if not, maybe 4 to 5. Am I correct? Right.
Yes. Well, the Democrats need a pickup of 4 seats because we're likely to lose one.
I see. Well, Dr. Kmart, now President Trump, he resumes his rallies on Monday evening in less than an hour over in the States for you. He's, of course, starting in Florida. And, of course, one of the biggest questions in recent days has been his health, how he's been recovering from COVID-19. And just a few hours ago, White House physician Sean Conley insisted that Trump tested negative for COVID-19 for consecutive days and isn't infectious to the public. But the fact of the matter is that people still really aren't convinced about the recovery. Do you think he should be out and about so soon?
Well, look, I mean, he's got to do what he feels like he's capable of doing. For his sake, I hope that he is healthy enough to resume an active campaign schedule, because there's only a few weeks left, and obviously America wants a choice. We don't really know what the status of the president's health is. He has convinced his own doctors to engage in the kind of obfuscation that he himself engages in so often. So you never know with this president. We don't know if he's healthy. We don't know if he's tested negative for 4 days, or if he's not infectious anymore. There's some sign of mask wearing, but among Republicans, but there's also signs of continued resistance to the most absolutely common sense ways to avoid this virus, including at the rally that's going on as we speak in Florida, where lots of people don't have masks on. So, this is a little microcosm of what's been going on since COVID-19 struck the United States, which is the president's leadership has been consistently wrong and bad on this, and that's frankly why he's in such trouble.
And how do you see this, Dr. Olson? I mean, right now, Biden is leading Trump by around 12 percentage points nationally in most national polls. As you can see on the screen here, the latest one shows that he's ahead by 54% to Trump's 42%. Do you think Trump is really winning with his strategy, his claim to have defeated the COVID-19 virus, and of course his brazenly not wearing a mask? Or do you think he's really just alienating more people, including members of his own party? I mean, like the Lincoln Project, for instance.
Yeah, well, the Lincoln Project were irreconcilables. There's many reasons why they don't like the president that have nothing to do with COVID. But I do think what the president has done is failed to take advantage of numerous opportunities to demonstrate a concern for safety first, which is what people both in the United States and most of the rest of the world want. He has tended to be more risk-taking in his personal behavior and encourage more risk-taking in the public than the public wants, and that has clearly hurt him. Polls show that people trust Joe Biden more than Donald Trump to deal with coronavirus, and that's true that his ratings on coronavirus are often below his ratings in the polls, which is there are people who will say they'll vote for him who don't think that he's done a great job with coronavirus. One would have hoped that the president's own illness would have caused kind of a hospital bed conversion to putting safety first. But while he has made some concessions, he still is sending a message that is out of step with where middle America is. And that's one reason why he's lost ground in the last 10 days in the polls when he needed to be gaining it.
And Dr. Olson, of course, you talked about risk-taking here, and he was prepared to take a risk in a debate with Joe Biden. He was insisting that they have a physical debate and, just shot down the possibility of a virtual one with the former vice president. So it's quite unclear when the next debate will take place, of course, although it's probably going to be on October 22nd. But with the debate this week having been cancelled, whose loss would you say it would be, Trump or Biden's?
Trump needs to gain, and that means he needs an opportunity to be in front of the American people and say something that changes the game. And he should be doing that in his messages as president. He is the person who can control attention or attract attention more than the Democratic nominee can, and he has not so far taken advantage of that to his benefit. But when you're behind, you want to be on a debate stage. That's tactics 101. And so I think getting onto the stage helps Trump more than Biden, because Biden's got a lead and he doesn't need to change people's opinion.
And what are your views on this, Dr. K. Mark? I mean, who's really at loss here with the debate being cancelled this week?
Well, I agree with Henry that generally, if you're behind, you want to be on the debate stage. The problem here is that the president's first debate hurt him badly. The president's first debate, he was rude, he was a bully. I think most women in the United States, including Republican women, recoiled at his behavior because it was every male bully mansplaining to us that we've ever met in our lives. It was quite appalling. And so, if we thought that he could change his behavior in a second debate, then, maybe he's missing an opportunity there. But frankly, to do in a second debate what he did in the first debate was just going to hurt him. So I'm not sure it's going to I'm not sure that he can come back in a debate. Remember, this is a man who has consistently rejected the advice of experienced, distinguished Republican strategists. He did it all through the midterm elections in 2018 to his detriment, and he's been doing it in this campaign too. He insists on doing things his own way, even when, frankly, he's wrong and it's mistaken. So I'm not sure that he could have, even if he'd agreed to have a debate this week, I'm not sure he could have gotten anything out of it.
But then at the same time, you could say that there was still a lot of criticism towards Joe Biden as well during the debate for really going down to Trump's level and also issuing some insulting remarks of his own. I mean, how would you really defend that, though? Do you think Biden could have done better? I mean, given a more reasoned argument?
It's human nature. It's human nature. When you're on the stage with somebody like that, you're going to lose it. Frankly, personally, I would have lost it way earlier than Joe Biden did. Okay, I mean, it's just human nature. You've got a guy who is yelling at you and won't let you speak and speaks over you and is incoherent to boot. And, I thought, frankly, that Joe Biden was remarkably constrained, okay, given what was happening to him on that debate stage. And I think most Americans agreed with me.
And Dr. Olson, what were your thoughts on the previous debates?
Oh, I thought that the president blew his best opportunity to close the race, and he did it by being a boor and a bully, just as Dr. K. Mark said. I do think that Biden benefits by comparison, but did not distinguish himself. A lot of the immediate reaction that you saw online and so forth was of two grumpy old men, not one aggressive grumpy old man. But the fact is the president was worse, and he blew a golden opportunity. That said, he has debated many times, and while he is aggressive, he has never behaved in any of the previous debates, either Republican debates in 2016 or against Hillary Clinton, as boorishly and as badly as he did on the first debate. And it's entirely possible that he could revert to mean Trump. Not by mean angry, I mean mean meaning average Trump. And compared to what he was in the first debate, that would look almost positively calming.
And well, I'd like to, before we go, I'd like to hear from both of you on this, but let's go with you first, Dr. Kmark. So what would you like to see from the next debate, whenever that takes place, either physically or virtually?
Well, I'd like to be able to hear both candidates. That's kind of a low bar, but I'd like to be able to hear what they have to say. I would like to hear Trump give his defense of his record on COVID-19, which from my point of view is pretty weak. But I think that, for instance, I think Mike Pence, his vice president, did a much better job than he did in trying to put a coherent argument around his handling of the crisis. So frankly, for the next debate, if there is one, I'd just like to be able to hear what people have to say. This first debate was really, really a disappointment and a low point in American politics.
And your thoughts on this, Dr. Olson?
As an American, I want to hear two people exchange ideas. I want to hear civility, and I want to hear something that suggests that each person can rally the country, which is what they're going to have to do if they win election. As a Republican, I would like to see President Trump make a coherent argument, which is to say not simply throw out factoids, which may or may not be accurate, but rather make a coherent argument why somebody who is undecided or is somebody who's not as liberal as a normal Democrat but is dissatisfied with President Trump should at least give the Republican candidates a second thought. But given what happened in the first debate, I'll settle for what Elaine will settle for. I will settle for two people who can talk to each other without engaging in a verbal food fight.
Well, hopefully in the... Well, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up the discussion here, but hopefully in the next debate between the two presidential candidates, we will we'll get more clarity on really important issues like handling COVID-19, foreign policy, and of course economic recovery. But that was Dr. Henry Olson and Dr. Arirang Kmark joining us from Washington, DC. Thank you both so much for your incredible insights.
Thank you for having us.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time here in South Korea. Have a lovely day or evening wherever you are. Bye-bye.